Hello, Amy and Bella here. Thank you for joining us on another soggy adventure. Beginning with a humiliating, messy accident in the middle of a hotel lobby, this is a 3-part story told from each of the characters' perspectives. Here is part 3. Bella had always believed being the responsible one meant keeping everything in order. The car fueled, the schedule tight, the group on track. But lying in her hotel bed that first night, she couldn't escape the truth playing on a loop in her head. She had dismissed Jordan's pleas in the car, told him to just hold it when he begged her to stop. She had snapped that even their youngest brother could last an hour without complaining, so why couldn't he? And then, in the lobby, she had watched helplessly as Jordan froze, every eye in the room turning toward him as his body betrayed him. What stung most wasn't the scene itself, it was Amy. Where Bella had rolled her eyes and marched to the desk, Amy had crossed the lobby with calm words and gentle hands. She had shielded Jordan from the stairs, guided him to safety, even put on a pull-up herself so he wouldn't feel alone. Bella sighed in the dark. She had been so focused on order and control that she'd forgotten the simplest things, empathy and kindness. And now, the guilt kept her wide awake. She pushed back the covers and padded into the bathroom. Her reflection looked troubled in the mirror. If she wanted to change, she thought, she had to start by understanding. She had spent years imagining that what Jordan went through must feel awful. But was it really the act itself that was so terrible? Or was it the shame of being seen in wet pants? There was only one way to find out. She pulled on a pair of jeans from her suitcase. Standing inside the shower stall, she felt her pulse quicken. Why was she choosing this? She asked herself that question honestly. She wasn't curious about the sensation for its own sake. She wanted to understand what it meant to be in Jordan's shoes. She wanted to know how it felt to cross that line, to let go in a way she had always avoided. Bella closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and relaxed her body. The warmth came quickly, spreading through her jeans, soaking the fabric and running down her legs. She gasped softly, both startled and fascinated. For years, she had treated accidents as unthinkable, humiliating beyond measure. But standing here, in private, it wasn't unbearable at all. Silly, yes, but not painful, not disgusting. She opened her eyes and looked down. The dark patch spread down her legs, shiny in the bathroom light. She had done it on purpose. She had wet her pants completely. Something her pride had always told her she should never allow. Only then did she reach for the faucet, turning on the water to rinse herself clean. Back in bed, in dry clothes, Bella stared at the ceiling, thinking hard. She realized something important. The act itself wasn't the source of humiliation. It wasn't the wet jeans or the smell or even the cleanup. It was what it represented, losing control. That was what shattered people. Jordan wasn't humiliated because of the sensation itself. He was humiliated because his body had failed him in front of everyone. Because strangers had seen him do something even small children were expected to avoid. Amy hadn't blushed because she wet her pull-up. She had blushed because others might see her as weak with pee-soaked pants. Bella rubbed her face with both hands. For years, she had prided herself on control, on proving she was capable, steady, reliable. Now, she understood that accidents weren't terrifying because of the mess. They were terrifying because of what they said about you to the world. That you were weak, that you couldn't manage something everyone else could. And the cruelest part? Most people around you didn't comfort you. They judged, they stared, they whispered. Bella thought about the strangers in the hotel lobby, the people at the restaurant. If Amy hadn't been there, Jordan would have faced it alone, drowning in shame with no one to steady him. If Bella herself hadn't softened at dinner, Amy might have walked through the room thinking she was utterly alone in her mistake. She hadn't realised until now how much comfort mattered. A hug. A calm voice. Someone saying, "It's okay." That was the difference between collapse and survival. The next morning, Bella tucked a few pull-ups, wipes, and a plastic bag into her day bag. As she zipped it, she smirked at the thought. It was basically a diaper bag now, and there was nothing wrong with that. Jordan looked steadier that morning, though quieter. Amy gave Bella a faint blush of a smile. Bella met her eyes gently. "Would you like another pull-up today?" No pressure. Amy hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I would." Back in Bella's room, Amy changed in the bathroom. When she emerged, Bella gave her a quick hug. Amy smiled back. With Jordan, Bella simply asked, "Bathroom before we go?" He nodded and came back looking a little relieved and a little unsure of what was going on. The day began peacefully. They strolled the waterfront, browsed market stalls, and listened to street performers. There was no tension in the air, yet Bella kept a close eye on her two companions. Then she saw it. A flicker of panic across Jordan's face, a stiffening of his shoulders. She stepped closer. "Did you have an accident?" she asked gently. Jordan's cheeks went red. He lowered his voice. "Just a little." Bella didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arms around him in a quick hug. "It's okay," she murmured. Taking his hand, she said, "Come on. Let's find a restroom." She guided him inside and stood by the door until he finished. When he emerged looking relieved, she smiled. "Better?" she asked. He nodded, eyes lowered but looking relaxed. Then Bella turned to Amy. "Do you need to go potty too?" Amy's cheeks flushed at the childish question. She nodded shyly. "All right," Bella said with a smile. "Let's take care of you too." She walked her into the restroom and waited outside to give her some privacy. When Amy came out, she looked embarrassed but not ashamed. Later that afternoon, at the museum, Bella kept a steady eye on both of them. In the middle of a gallery, she leaned close. "Do either of you need to go potty?" Jordan shook his head, but Amy's cheeks went bright red. Bella knew at once. "Come on," she said softly, putting a hand on Amy's back. "Let's get you changed." In the family restroom, Bella helped Amy into a fresh pull-up, tossing the wet one into the trash can. "All set?" "All set," Amy said, her voice small but grateful. "Good," Bella said warmly. "Let's go get ice cream." They left the museum with cones in hand, the tension broken by laughter as Jordan dripped chocolate down his shirt. By evening, they wandered back to the waterfront for sunset. The last glow of the day lit the water in gold. They sat together on a bench, watching the sky change colours. After a while, Jordan shifted uneasily. "Bella," he whispered, I need to go." She glanced toward the restrooms, only to see the gates pulled down, closed for the day. Her heart softened. She put an arm around his shoulders. "It's okay. Just use your pull-up. I'll help you change back at the hotel." Jordan's face burned, but he nodded. A moment later, he exhaled and leaned against her side. She didn't say anything more, just squeezed his shoulder gently. He was safe. The next morning, they had packed their bags and got into their cars to head home. They knew things would not be the same moving forward. These new roles, this new dynamic just felt right. It felt comfortable and normal, even though only a couple days has passed. Bella watched the highway roll by, the thoughts settling heavier with every mile. She realised that if she really wanted to understand what Jordan and Amy had gone through, it wasn't enough to imagine it or to wet herself in the privacy of her shower. The only way she could truly feel their humiliation was to have an accident in a place where she couldn't avoid being seen. That idea scared her, but it also felt necessary. She thought of the upcoming music festival in their town, the one that always had long lines for the porta potties. Crowds of people, no quick exits, no way to cover up if something happened. It was the perfect setting to see what it was really like. She would go when it was busy. She would wear jeans that would show everything. She would drink water until she was on the verge of losing control, and stay in line until she couldn't hold it anymore. Everyone in line around her would see her wet her jeans, and there would be no way to hide it. Legs crossed, hands jammed between her thighs, and glistening wet patches as she emptied her bladder into her jeans right there in line. She wouldn't wrap a sweater around herself or do anything to hide what she'd done. She would then have to walk all the way back to her car with wet stains down both legs. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about empathy. She wanted to feel the fear, the helplessness, the sting of being seen in wet clothes, so she could better understand and never let Jordan or Amy face it alone again. Bella glanced at her brother in the passenger seat. He was asleep, his head leaned against the window, his breathing slow and steady. Seeing him so peaceful made her chest ache, but in a warm way. Love swelled inside her heart. She knew she would go through with her plan, not for herself, but for him. To make sure that the next time life betrayed him, she would be the first to wrap him in her arms and tell him it was okay. That's what big sisters are for. We hope you loved this little story. We sure had fun writing it for you. And we also want to mention that this story is purely fantasy. We would never encourage anyone to wet or mess in public where strangers are involved. It's never okay to force others to participate in your kink without their consent. Now, we'd love to hear about your story. How do you like to care for others, or how do you like others to care for you regarding little space? Tell us about your experience in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss any messy stories or hypnosis audios. Now click on our next video for another wet or messy adventure.